My sister-in-law's wedding happened in a little river, and I mean in the river, in the water. The minister, bride who's my husband's sister, and groom stood on a little strip of land, so they weren't wet. But all attendants were expected to stand in knee-deep rushing water for the whole ceremony. I'm sure it made for great photos, but I dislike mud, germs, insects, and whatever diseases are found in that stream. But the kids who couldn't easily stand in water that might be as tall as their whole body were left in ankle-deep water nearby with a couple of older women. But when I refused to remove my shoes and socks and pull up my dress pants, my husband offered that I stay with the kids. When I refused to walk into that water, even if it's just ankle deep, my husband became visibly angry and waded into the water back and forth between his sister and me to mediate. The bride and groom apparently refused to start until every person was in the water. I felt blindsided, because if I'd been told in advance what the wedding entailed, I would have faked the stomach bug and not attended the darn thing at all. But since in the after party, I felt that I was being avoided by everyone else, including my husband. That was nearly 2 weeks ago. My husband was stone-faced and refusing to talk to me about it or about anything at all for several days. At pauses, and when we started talking again, he refused to address the wedding beyond telling me that I humiliated him in front of his family. And he refuses to talk about any longer. He thinks like, I'll get really angry if you keep bringing this topic up. Put it to rest and I'll try to forget what you did. But I feel like I did nothing wrong. As I understand it, that detail was made known to guests beforehand. My husband knew. He claimed that he forgot to tell me about it. My husband and his sister were the ones planning things. I just followed along for the ride and was blindsided by the water thing. When the ceremony started, everyone around me casually started undressing and getting into the water without a fuss. So I suspect they all knew and had consented in advance. Between I was the only one or one of the few guests who wasn't made aware of it in advance. My husband did not pack any extra clothes for himself. He was fine being a bit wet. It was a hot day, and he's not the kind of person to care about being dirty. The towels were provided by the host. I think this is absolutely the most bat crap, crazy wedding theme or whatever idea this was supposed to be that I've ever heard. Sweet Jesus in a manger, standing in a river to get married. Not the idiot, but your husband and his family are. In a river, huh? Wow, just wow. Your spouse is a massive idiot for not telling you in advance. And the couple are massive idiots for refusing to go on without you in the water. They don't feel guilty. This is on them, mostly your spouse and not on you. Sorry, but it's such an unusual request to make of wedding guests that there's no way they forgot to tell you. They just hoped you'd fall in line. On top of that, they should have had your back, not tried to negotiate you into an uncomfortable position, especially publicly. I love the water, but at a wedding, I wouldn't stand in moving water through a ceremony for photos. And maybe it was a group baptism too. That was my first thought. Having a ceremony in a river is an extremely out-of-the-norm thing. There's absolutely no way he forgot such an absurd thing. He knew you would refuse, maybe even refuse to go if the bride and groom wouldn't compromise. They're breaking up restorations, and he thought, if I don't tell her and we just rock up and you find out, the pressure of holding up a wedding will be enough to force you into doing it. Peer pressure will win out here. Exactly. The sister was never going to compromise. She'd rather put her wedding on hold for half an hour while trying to force a guest into a river than to just let it go. So he decided it was easier to just manipulate and pressure you. It sounds like some weird power trip. I mean, the bride and groom weren't getting in the river, but they wanted their guests to do it. They were angry. Did someone say grapes on those napkins? Just a bizarre request. Like, yeah, you don't have to, but it's only, 20 minutes of a living nightmare? And then you can dry off and continue like normal. This is the family you married into. Some sacrifices have to be made to keep the peace. Is it always your way or the highway? I'm going to say you are the idiot just because having a relationship with others means giving in sometimes. And being stubborn when it literally won't hurt you at all is not a good trait. Also, you could have just left and waited in the car rather than contributing to causing a scene. Sect. Am I the idiot for refusing to get wet for my sister-in-law's wedding? Clearing up some misconceptions. I'm a man. My husband and I are a gay couple. The towels were provided, but there was no way to wash your feet from the mud and germs. Just a lot of guests had a change of clothes. Some removed part of their outfits and put the lower bits back on after drying themselves, and others decided to get wet and remain in wet clothes. But the bride and groom did not expect everyone to stay wet all evening. The level of the water was not that deep. As from where I stood, I could see women up to their knees or lower thighs for the smaller ones. And to taller guests, it reached their shins. It didn't see anyone fall into the water or even seriously stumble, so the fears of guests not knowing how to swim are misplaced. My husband knew about this requirement in advance, as he coordinated with his sister. He claims it was by mistake that I wasn't made aware of it until the day of. He's accepted blame for failing to inform me, but he remains upset about the whole event. I don't know his exact feelings on the topic beyond the fact that he accused me of humiliating him in front of his family. I wanted to hear from him a form of apology for getting outwardly angry at me, but not at his sister when I felt like I was being reasonable. He was getting agitated whenever I tried to discuss it. So now we do not discuss this topic. My husband still talks to me overall. He's calmed down and acts pretty much normal day to day, and he's even affectionate. I feel very frustrated because I feel like I was treated unfairly and then blamed wrongly. His family will definitely remember me as the troublemaker and probably think I'm disrespectful. Back to my confirmation, I'd like my husband to acknowledge that I was done dirty and to defend my reputation in I admit fault and that I could have walked away and waited in the car. In retrospect, the bride and groom wanted me in the water because I was the only person on the shore and it was not as picturesque. They should have communicated that, but I should have also understood it. Even if not, it would have been the more mature thing to do, to remove myself from the situation so the ceremony could go on and the photos could be as pretty as the couple wanted them to be. I have a 39-year-old brother, and his wife lost everything 6 months ago. The Tietness their company liquidated. They lost their house 3 months later because neither of them could find employment in their area. One of their vehicles was repossessed, etc., etc. After selling off all their valuables, they lived in their vehicle for a month with their kids and dog. My husband and I talked, and he reluctantly agreed to let me help them out with a place to stay. See, my husband is unemployed due to a back injury 8 months ago and hates company, especially since I'm hardly home because of how much I work. I personally think he's fine now, but he says he isn't. So they've been here for 2 months. Both of them now work full-time and have helped me out significantly with bills, electric, mortgage, food, because I'm struggling myself since my husband isn't working. Well, 3 weeks ago, my husband told me that if they didn't get out of his house, that he would leave me. He said he was tired of the kids and the dogs and lost his cool on their small child, yelled at him. So he said them or me. I personally went out and purchased them a camper to stick on my property, but it needed a lot of work done. So my brother's been working on it on his time off, but they've been staying in a tent on my property in the meantime. Their dog still stayed in my house due to the heat. But now my husband says he's done with the dog and that they all need to leave and gave the same me or them talk again. So I told my brother they needed to leave, offered to help cover a campground cost, and told him why. My brother's extremely angry with me right now because since they've been here, they've spent almost 3 weeks helping me out with the bills, just to be tossed out like last week's garbage due to a dead who sits on the couch all day doing nothing, while we all bust our butts to pay his way. I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, I took a vow here and I'm not willing to lose my husband for my brother and his family no matter how hard up they are. He has no say in what goes on in that house. Well, your brother absolutely is paying your husband's way, and it isn't fair to toss them out after all they've done to help you out. Shame on you. You took $3 from people who are struggling to regain their footing. And if they have $3 to give you, why aren't they in their own place now? From how you refer to your husband, why aren't you calling his bluff? He actually asked me or them. It's been 2 months. Tell him and see what happens. I'll bet nothing. At this point, you should return their money to them, or at least a large portion of it. Honey, your husband won't leave. He has no job. Who will take in a deadbeat? Oh, no. You then kick out your brother, who's been helping you. You and your loser husband deserve each other. Even if you don't believe the back injury story and admit he hates working. Just wow. I, 34, have 2 kids, a male kindergartner and a female toddler, with my husband Jack, 32. My mother-in-law's house has a big pool, and the weather was nice last week. So me, the kids, Jack, and his 3 sisters, and their families came for a pool day. Ex-sister Lily, 29, is pregnant. She already has a son, a preschooler, and we have different strategies for parenting, but her son is not mine, so it's not my business. I have never said anything about her parenting, but as I post about how I parent and she follows me, she sees we're very different. Lily's pregnancy has been hard for her, and my mother-in-law asked her to ask me for advice. My pregnancies were smooth sailing, and I had no issues, so I told her I didn't really have advice, but encouraged her to join my mom's group as someone that could help. I run a mom's group in my city, and it's a good way for my kids to meet other kids before school and swap advice or stories. Also on social media, I post my life, what I cook, how I parent, and balance my full-time job. But Lily left to take her maternity leave earlier, as she had severe morning sickness and her pregnancy's high risk. I was handing out drinks to everyone, and Lily was last. When we spoke, it was only us. She asked for a non-alcoholic beer, and I told her quietly, I'm not sure, but I think that it still has alcohol in it and is actually low alcohol. She snatched the beer from my hand and told me she didn't want advice from the parenting police. I have a Muslim friend, and I know that specific beer has alcohol in it, as he refuses to drink it. When we joined the rest of the group, she moved to sit as far away from me as possible. She told my mother-in-law, who asked me to apologize to Lily and keep the peace, especially as Lily's struggling with her pregnancy right now and is very stressed and hormonal. Actually, I'd like to keep the peace, but I don't think I was in the wrong or want Lily to think I'm a doormat by apologizing. She is an adult and can make her own decisions. That's the way she snatched it and called me the parenting police upset me. You write about how much you do as a mother and how easy pregnancies are for you in such a way that it comes across like you believe your pregnancies were easy because of your choices and Lily's. Pregnancy is harder because of hers. If that's coming across to strangers, I can only imagine how it comes across to Lily. Are you my sister-in-law? Because you seem just like her. You run a mom's group. You post how well your life is organized. Basically, your social media is an example of, if you can't be like me, then you're doing it wrong. She took the beer, and again, you knew better and said something when she didn't ask. At least you're aware enough to know that you shouldn't offer advice on a tough pregnancy. But yeah, I'm not shocked. She unfollowed and blocked you over it. Yeah, based on how much you're going on about your mommy blog and mommy groups and easy pregnancies, I'm betting Lily was already 100 done with your sanctimommy bees and the drink was just breaking point. Mind your own darn business. From this story, you sound incredibly obnoxious and overbearing. Just the vibe I'm getting. I have one picky eater that just graduated middle school, so next year, he'll be a high schooler. Honestly, I'm sick of it. I can't force him to eat something, but I decided not to help him anymore. He's old enough that if he's going somewhere, he can check what's there. And if he doesn't like it, then pack a sandwich or just suck it up and eat something there. So that's what I'm doing. Well, I told him and he's not happy. The first time he went to a graduation party, he didn't pack anything and didn't want any of the food there. So he went hungry. He did the same thing today and didn't pack anything. So at our aunt's, he went hungry. He told everyone in the family what I was doing, and now everyone is angry that I'm not feeding him. Am I the idiot? Or just eat something there, not the idiot. No one is going to starve to death at a party. We can eat in advance. choose something offered there, or as a last resort, bring his own food. I do think you need to be taking action to help him improve the situation. It could be anything, ranging from toddler-level strategies to expanding his food menu, all the way up to having him work with a therapist who specializes in food aversion. Book him through it. Don't just tell him the pieces of planning ahead, packing his food for an event, and adding anything he needs to the grocery list a couple of times. Instead, take baby steps to help him comfortably take on this adult skill, rather than giving him the impression that you're tired of his issues and leaving him to figure it out on his own. Food insecurity is a significant anxiety trigger that will make him less flexible and less able to think and plan these things out. Oh, I don't know. I don't understand this phenomenon. Picky eaters' preferred choice is chicken nuggets. Unmystified? Assessed cubes of chicken every day. Is it the texture, the taste, or the compactness? Or is there a fear of growing up? It's just baffling to me. Sometimes kids need a rude wake-up call so they know the consequences. Continuing to baby him will only lead to more whining. It's not like his parents are going to pack him food forever. But kids with medical reasons for avoiding foods will start managing their own diets at his age. It's a critical adult life skill to ensure you have something to eat when you anticipate needing food. You're not the idiot